All right. Appreciate y'all joining us. We're the Spittin Seeds team. I'm Beeve.
Matt Beard.
Andrew Fleming.
All right. We got a pretty good show for you guys today. We're going to try to keep it nice and neat. Some really hot stuff that's been bugging our team quite a bit lately. Talking about some RPI, game cancellations, something that's really bugged our team. We're going to have a few hot takes for you. We really want to dig into some of our top series coming in for this weekend, give you a few picks, talk a little bit about what we think. And then once we get done with some of that, we're going to touch up with a few individual thoughts, how we think postseason's going to shake out, maybe even a little bit of who we think's going to end up making it to Omaha. With that being said, I really got to jump right into this, guys. What's been going on with this RPI situation lately has been absolutely mind-boggling to me. I am having a really tough time not getting extremely hot and distasteful with what I have to say about some of the way teams are handling this. Credit to Texas A&M for at least coming out and admitting what they're doing instead of trying to hide behind trip issues or travel issues or what have you. But it absolutely has to get to a point where we either change the RPI and what it stands for, or teams are responsible for forfeiting these games or some kind of fine, because it's destroying the sport. Before I get a little too hot on this, I'm going to pass it off to you guys so you can have a few thoughts. Jump in, let us know what you think. Matt, if you want to go ahead and take it.
Yeah, we discussed it a little bit on Twitter. Because watching the LSU game, LSU playing Northwestern State right there locally, just down the street in Louisiana. The problem with it is, regardless win or loss, LSU was going to drop RPI ranking. They knew that. And even more so if they were to have lost that game, they would have dropped dramatically. But they're being punished for playing a game that was scheduled. And that's, I think, the big thing, too, that I don't understand is how these teams are canceling games, especially at the end of the season, for something they scheduled before the season even started. You had to have had some intention of playing that. I don't think you would go into the season going, we got a game at the end of the year we can cancel if RPI gets too bad, or if we're not where we want to be going into postseason. So that's frustrating as a fan, because midweek games have been important to a lot of fans and players and teams, because I think it's, an opportunity to, if you come off a tough weekend, to get right before, like the last weekend of conference play or going into the tournament. And it's also an opportunity, if you maybe say played well, you can give some guys some rest and get some guys in there that don't normally play. There's a lot of reasons why those games are important regardless of who you're playing. It's even more important, I think, to the opponent for multiple reasons. Getting guys on TV that may not normally be on there. It helps their RPI, especially if they go in there and knock somebody off, which has happened quite a bit this year in midweek games. These guys get to live out dreams that, like I said last night, their talent may not have afforded them the ability to play it like an LSU, an Arkansas, an A&M, a Texas, but they're good enough to play at that Division I level, maybe at a mid-major, and now they get to go into Alex Box and play, or Baum Stadium and play in front of people. A couple guys hit home runs for Northwestern State last night. And probably meant the world to those Louisiana guys to do that in Baton Rouge. So it's frustrating to watch as a fan and to see that happen, especially with no real answer by the team or the athletic program on why that's happening.
Plus, more importantly, let's be honest, one less game of baseball is quite possibly the last thing that this world needs right now. One less game of baseball being played means that much fewer seeds being spit, and that's ultimately incredibly disappointing to me.
For sure.
Flem, what's your take?
I personally don't think your RPI should ever drop for a game that you played and won. Regardless who you played, you could play, Kansas School for the Blind. If you beat them 1-0, I don't think your RPI should be affected. Now, that's part of the RPI. Is there's a giant algorithm that nobody really knows how it comes out. Like DBU has the number 2 strength of schedule, and how they have the number 2 strength of schedule in the RPI, beyond me. But I think Matt hit on something, that it's pretty crucial. A lot of these small school kids who grew up, say like in the state of Tennessee, they dream about playing for Vanderbilt or Tennessee. That's just what it is. And for them to get an opportunity to come to those stadiums that they probably went to tournaments in or went to camps in and had a dream of one day playing in, they get to realize those dreams and have them come true by, playing the big state school or, playing Vanderbilt at Vanderbilt. I think something has to be done about it. I think you should be penalized if you cancel a game late in the season like that. That's not legitimate. We also did have a big time game last night when Florida and Florida State. Not too many states and schools are fortunate to have a midweek game like that. Big time rivalry, emotions are running high, great ending, and that's just kind of what college baseball is all about. And when some of these small schools come into these bigger schools on a Tuesday night, that's their quote unquote World Series for them. They're gonna give their best, and they hope that the other team on the side of the field is gonna give it back to them. So I just think it's a really disappointing for college baseball and where we're at currently to be canceling games this late in the season. I think one thing Tony Vitello preaches is playing every game he can. He had a cancellation earlier in the year, and they rescheduled it last minute just so they could get all 56 games in or whatever they play. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, and I think an offshoot of these games too, that I didn't really think about until today, is sometimes an opportunity presents itself for a kid, maybe at I'll use LSU as an example, just because there's kids this year and the past couple of years that are at these smaller schools. There were LSU the previous year that didn't get to play, whether it be injury or there was just a dude in front of them and then a dude coming behind them, and they were like, well, I'm probably not going to play. But they knew that they could go to that school, transfer there, play there, and not only that, come back and play against LSU. So I think that's kind of a small, not thought about piece of this, is especially with transfer portal the way it is now. Guys can see that they get opportunities and vice versa. LSU might see a guy, an arm or a bat somewhere else and be like, we might be able to use that guy. And if he decides maybe he wants to move up and he can, maybe he developed at that school, maybe he wasn't good enough to come out of high school, but now he's good enough to come play here and help us. Let's see what we can do. So I think that's a big piece too.
That's something I was going to say is, it gives you a chance for those bigger schools to even recruit mid-game.
Yeah.
I mean, it gets what better visibility than playing the team you want to play for.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. So we could be talking about that all night, but for the sake of keeping it professional, I think we handled that pretty well. I don't think there's a single person on this planet that's a college baseball fan that agrees with the RPI system at this point. Does it in fact get better as the season goes on? Yes, but there's a reason that even college basketball as a sport did away with it as part of their selection process for the tournament. It needs to change. It's outdated. There just aren't people powerful enough in this sport that are willing to jump out and make sure the right things are being taken care of as far as the sport. More people have their eyes on it than ever, especially with what happened with Major League Baseball to start the season. I mean, eyes are on the sport now. We need to make sure that we take care of this sport for going forward. And this is a blatant disregard and disrespect for what the sport means to all of these people across the country. People, please do better. And on top of that, please get out and support these teams, these programs, and these kids, regardless if it is a small home game like this. Fans' voices mean something, especially when it comes to college baseball. They're going to be packing the seats and stuff like that anyway. Teams and programs may be more inclined to not cancel. So, get off my soapbox there. Let's talk about some of our series going into this weekend. Number of good series coming up into the last regular season weekend. Quite a few. Unfortunately, it does tend to be, we could make all of these SEC series every single week. But there are quite a few good series across the country right now. I wish there were some bigger mid-major ones that we could possibly talk about, but, here we are. Let's go ahead and start out talking about some of the matchups. We'll go around here a little bit about what everybody has to say. And then before we pass them off, we'll go ahead and make your picks on who you think's going to take it. That way I can chastise you and throw nasty, mean things at you once your team loses. Matt, go ahead and start it off, bud.
I'm LSU at Vandy. Two teams fighting to host. Two teams who one in LSU had got blown off the field by Ole Miss last week. And then Vanderbilt goes into Fayetteville and beats Arkansas. So you've got two teams right now that are kind of on the opposite ends of the spectrum coming into the series. Vanderbilt, little bit different than past years with Vanderbilt. They're, one big thing too is Enrique Bradfield taking the bases, and LSU is not a team that will throw guys out. However, Alex Malazzo, the guy that you don't run on, got to make an appearance this past Tuesday night. Case in point, don't cancel games. You get a chance to guy come in and play who hasn't really played all year. But, his bat isn't all that great, but what he does behind the plate is massive. And especially going into Vanderbilt with a team like that runs the bases, that could be a huge help. Getting Jacob Berry in to play Tuesday, get to hit. I still kind of lean towards leaving him out until the SEC tournament just to let the finger go a little bit more. But if we don't hit the ball well like we didn't against Ole Miss, it'd be hard to keep him out of the lineup. So that's a huge one there in Nashville this weekend for sure. Flim?
Well, if we're going to pick that game, Vanderbilt's coming off the win at Arkansas. They're definitely a defense pitching heavy team. They got Keegan and Bradfield. It's kind of their offense. That's where they sit. They are hot though. I think Corbin's got them kind of peaking at the right time. And LSU's, behind Hilliard, what does LSU have on the mound? You got Fontenot on the back end?
Well, we've got Gervais, Fontenot, Reiselman. The thing about it is
your Harness.
Johnson is who?
Your Harness.
His Harness, Riley Cooper. That's right. There's a chance that Jacob Hasty, I think, makes a start this weekend. Been pretty good out of the pen. So
I just don't. I think Vanderbilt's getting hot at the right time. I like Vanderbilt to win that series.
It'd be hard not to say that, honestly. I'll go with Vandy, but here's hoping my boys pull something out. It'd be nice to go into Nashville and sweep them, honestly, because I think that's what it's going to take in a couple wins in Hoover to get that host spot.
Yeah, and just in the SEC, let's Texas A&M at Ole Miss. You got two really, really, really hot teams.
At Ole Miss
coming
too.
Off. Yeah, Swayze is going to be rocking. Hopefully, for the sake of those kids. Ole Miss has struggled for a good bit of the season, but has started to turn things around. DeLucia has been incredible for them on the mound. And then you got, Elko Gonzalez kind of there at setting the table for the offense. So, and then on the other side, man, Texas A&M has just been solid. You could argue they're the hottest in the country right now. They're just playing good baseball. I honestly like Texas A&M to take that series.
I actually think Ole Miss might do it. I mean, if they're even half of what they did against us offensively, they can win that series because A&M can hit a home run, but they're not gonna bang it around the yard like some of these teams are. But they are gritty. When you're pitching against them, you're gonna have a long at bat. You can't make mistakes when a guy keeps fouling the ball off, and they're gonna dink and dunk you to death. So I'm going with Ole Miss on that.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, since you guys just decided that you were going to jump over me,
You have a shoot
and
too.
go
Oh,
off
sorry.
topic, you're lucky I don't drop down the hammer on you fools. If we were never a computer and we were sitting by each other, I'd be throwing you out of the back of this airplane.
Hey, the raccoon says otherwise, okay?
I can handle a raccoon now. All right. that boy ain't got nothing on me. But so in back on the LSU Vandy deal, I mean, first things first. I mean, pitching travels, pitching wins tournaments. I mean, it's blatantly obvious. Mississippi State had some timely hitting last year, but it was pitching that drove that team. Yep. They just got hot at the right time. Vandy all year has had a top 5 ERA in the country. I mean, they have the pieces to be there. The bats just hadn't come alive. Enrique Bradfield struggled a little bit earlier in the year, but if that team can get hot, especially with their small ball capability, that's not a team that anybody is going to want to face. And I mean, I just don't see. I mean, granted, a vastly improved LSU team over the course of this year and still some pieces that they need to get in place. I just don't think the structure that you guys have with the bullpen right now is going to be able to cut it against a team like that, especially with the amount of fielding errors that happen, with the kind of small ball that Vandy could play. I think that gets to LSU this weekend. Honestly, I think Vandy takes this series pretty easily. I hate to say that because I know we got some great LSU followers and not so many Vandy ones. It does pain me to say a little bit, but I do think Vandy takes that series pretty easily. You guys jumped over to the A&M Ole Miss deal. Yeah, I mean, there's no argument there. A&M is probably the hottest team in the country right now. I mean,
arguably,
I just don't see many teams that can argue that. Yeah, if you take overall body of work, yeah, you have your Tennessees and your Oregon States, but I mean, over the last 3-4 weeks, I don't think anybody has an argument in the country that they're the hottest team right now. Maybe Virginia Tech.
Yeah, definitely.
A&M is just a gritty, come at you, in your face baseball team. They remind me a lot. They play a similar style, actually, Flem, and you'll recall this, like in Indiana State, how scrappy they were last year. I mean,
definitely.
they pretty well had the same identity in my eyes. And a lot of people may not get that comparison with Indiana State, but a baseball team that plays like that is just flat out exciting to watch. But then you come to the other side, man, in Ole Miss. I mean, Dylan DeLucia's starting to get hot. Wes Burton is the craziest dude on this planet, and I absolutely love it. So, I mean, pitching, they could put it together over at Ole Miss. And when you have Tim Elko, too, that comes up to the plate, I don't think that's a team you can ever come out with the heroic capability that dude has. I mean, that's a sneaky pick for quite possibly the best series of the weekend. I mean, I'm going to take Ole Miss this series. Actually, I'm going to take Ole Miss to take the series against A&M. That put me on the hot mic there, but that's my pick for the series.
It's at home. That's massive.
Beer showers for everybody, man.
Oh, they're coming.
They are coming.
I think another one of ours, Notre Dame at Miami. I've got some beef with Notre Dame.
You've made that abundantly clear.
Very clear in a group text that I just don't like Notre Dame, the whole athletics program. But my main beef with Notre Dame baseball this year is the cancellation of games. I think they've canceled the most games this year.
7.
And most of them, read between the lines, it's RPI.
They did have some weather issues. I'll give them that. There were quite a few weather issues earlier in the year that threw
for
them
turf
out,
fields.
but
Y'all have played through monsoons in Knoxville.
yeah.
So that my big beef is with Notre Dame and a team that kind of, I mean, they're good, but can they be good when it matters? And they're about to go down to Miami where weather is not an excuse. And not to mention, you just canceled your midweek game with you're rested, but you could have had an opportunity to kind of see some pitches and see some things happen. And now you're going into Miami, who's been outstanding all year. I mean, a couple hiccups here and there, but they've minimized those pretty regularly, and they usually play well at home. So I'm going with Miami on that one.
Well, Miami's coming off 3 straight losses. Lost the series to Florida State. Game 2 and Game 3 lost their midweek game. They were a top 3 team earlier in the season in most polls.
Yeah.
I mean, they were as hot as anybody. They were the Texas A&M, about a month ago or so. Notre Dame's been really of a quiet team. They don't get much publicity. They don't. I mean, they're just kind of going about their business.
They hardly play.
That is a valid point. But they have. I mean, they're a good team last year. They ran into a good Mississippi State team in Super Regionals, and we all know what happened with them in Omaha. I mean, I honestly kind of like their name to win this series at Miami, and it's not because they're better than them. I just think they're playing better baseball.
I actually tend to lean with Flem on this one. Notre Dame has been sneaky consistent this year. Outside of that sweep at Duke and Louisville, which just seemed like complete and utter anomalies, they've been wildly consistent. I mean, it's really disappointing, some of the games that have had to be canceled due to weather. I mean, they had that one against NC State. They had 2 games against Virginia Tech get canceled, which, I mean, now looks like it would have been just a world beater type series. But overall, man, just a solid program across the board. Miami has just been floundering. I don't know what is going on down there right now, but it just doesn't seem like they can hold it together, especially here towards the end of the season. That's when I got to lean Notre Dame there. Plus, I used to live in South Bend for a little bit, so maybe there's a little bit of Homer stuff there.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah,
well,
pretty city.
Let's head out west. We got
Oregon
UCLA
State,
and Oregon State.
Sir.
Man,
you know how I feel about the
we're about to make some friends or a lot of enemies here.
UCLA. Sometimes I don't get them. Sometimes I just don't understand. What was it last weekend? They went the weekend before it was 0-4, 3 straight losses to Washington. Is that right?
Sounds
yeah.
Right.
But I love the pitching staff. I love what they do. Of course, they've had quite a few guys that just keep ending up on the injury list out of the bullpen, which has hurt them, I think, quite a bit, because they're not gonna knock the ball all over the yard. It's West Coast baseball, so pitching is a premium. Oregon State, there's been a lot of discussion with them and your boys in Knoxville. Who should the number 1 team be? Especially after Tennessee goes up to Kentucky and loses. And it's like, oh, well, Oregon State's, got this winning record. They're playing well. And then Oregon State lays a big fat egg this weekend. at
To
Arizona.
be frank, that is a pretty reasonable argument. Oregon State has been extremely consistent. There was definitely an argument there, but Tennessee had definitely separated themselves quite a bit. To the point where some of those losses in terrible weather going into extra innings and stuff like that, and it being that close, I think are really what played into the storyline of the loss of that series.
I just find it funny that there was that conversation, and then Oregon State does the exact same thing the following weekend, and I still kept them at 2. I mean, they've been one of the two of the the second of the most consistent teams all year with Tennessee. So I didn't think that necessarily needed to drop them. It hurt because it's one of those recent memory things, but. That could be. I could see UCLA going in there and winning if they catch them right. If maybe this is something to tell us about Oregon State. Was this a hiccup, or is this kind of that downslide because you've played well all year and you weren't able to keep it going? But at the end of the day, it's Oregon State, and I think they take that series.
Oregon State's got a stud, that guy, that Cooper kid.
Cooper Jerpa.
You could say he's, top 3 pitchers in the country.
Let's be honest, he's the best pitcher in the country right now.
Yeah, I agree. Parker Messick was there for a little bit, but
I think there's guys out there that are as good. But he's pitching well. I mean, he's got an argument to be made for him.
Didn't he have 19 Ks in a game and lose earlier this year?
I know he had 19
or something like that. Had like 19 Ks, gave up 1 run and lost.
I think he was still our pitcher of the week, though.
And you got Jacob Melton, who literally leads the Pac-12 in average for the Beavers. He's still hot. And on the other side, you got Jake Palmer, who's been red hot. I think he's hitting like 380 something over the last 30, 35 games. I mean, that's Sonny DeShera type stuff. And then obviously UCLA is really, really young in their pitching staff. A lot of good young arms. I don't think they're there yet. I think you give UCLA 1, maybe 2 more years, and you're looking at a team that can go into Omaha and win it. I just think Oregon State's too good right now, and I think they got something to prove after coming off of that series loss at Arizona. I like the Beavers.
Yeah, well, obviously my name is Beeve, so I think we know where I'm going to go with this one. But you guys brought up good points. This is just a pitching battle for the ages. I mean, UCLA, at like 3.48 ERA, they're number 6 in the country right now. I mean, Oregon State's just shortly behind them at like a 3.6, number 11 in the country. So, I mean, they're just going to duke it out. But what really separates it for me is UCLA has a pretty tough time getting on base. I mean, they just don't have the bats to be able to hang. Oregon State, 18th in the country in OBP, and UCLA all the way down at 90. I mean, it's just not a recipe for success, especially if you're playing West Coast ball. I mean, you got to take advantage when you can, and UCLA just hasn't been able to, and that's why you see the wild inconsistency that they've had this year. Offense has definitely let the bullpen down. I see absolutely zero way that Oregon State doesn't take this one. I actually think Oregon State sweeps UCLA this weekend.
It's bold.
Wow. I would not have guessed that coming out.
Yep.
I wouldn't have. All right. Well,
I'm pretty firm on that too. You can take that one to the bank.
You either made friends or enemies.
Yeah.
I think
hopefully a lot of friends on this one.
I think of a certain bucktooth account that might have something to say about that.
All right. Yeah.
Bought some seeds, and now all of a sudden you're a giant homer. I see how it is.
Public enemy number 1, possibly.
Hey, I was born a Beaver. Okay.
That's fair. Stanford at USC. Stanford, another team that has always historically been great. They've been good. They have gotten better. They're kind of a quiet team in the Pac-12, which is funny because it's Stanford. I mean, they're sitting second in the conference, and yet they kind of fly under the radar. Very much like their football team. Maybe it's an athletics culture thing that they just go about their business. They do well, and things kind of figure themselves out. USC, I'm sorry, dead last in the conference in the Pac-12, sitting at 500 on the year. Would love to play spoiler. I don't think they do. They've been pretty rough all year. You've got guys at Stanford. You've got 4 guys hitting over 300. Their main guys. And then, the pitching staff at Stanford pitching, it's kind of like UCLA, always seems to throw well. They've got more guys out of the pen than I think they do starters, kind of resembles LSU. They just seem to do a little bit better consistently. I think Stanford wins that pretty easily. But, it's college baseball, and there's been some crazier weekends that we've seen.
Yeah, so I think one of the reasons we picked this game is just because the tradition that both schools have. They're 2 giant, you can call them blue bloods almost. Stanford, definitely. USC, definitely. Yeah, they're both blue blood baseball programs.
USC's got the most natties.
Stanford's coming off World Birth last year. They've been they've been quiet. They've had their ups, they've had their downs. They got, all kinds of great talent. They got that Braden Montgomery kid, 2-way player. And USC, man, they're just kind of chugging along too. Not as good of a baseball team as they should be with all the talent there out in California. But that can be, when UCLA and Stanford are both good, one of the teams is going to take a hit. I like Stanford probably to sweep that series if we're gonna make hot takes. Stanford's kind of in the fight for a Pac-12 title. They're 1 game back of Oregon State. I like Stanford.
Yeah, that's pretty much it right there. USC has been a sneaky team. They're definitely one that seems to have liked the challenge this year. They had a good series against UCLA, but when it really comes down to it, can you really pick anything else out about this team this year? If they hadn't taken that series against UCLA, they'd almost be an afterthought in college baseball, which is wild to say when it comes to a program like USC. I don't know if a decade ago, 2 decades ago, that's anything that would have ever crossed anybody's mind about this program. But unfortunately, that's where they're at right now. And part of that's due to the dominance of the SEC. Taking a lot of players from out in California, a lot of big time hitters from out in California are coming to the SEC to play ball, and they're missing out on them. Those are all guys they would have gotten in the past. And I think they're kind of victim to the NIL deal. I think they've fallen behind tremendously there in a lot of areas. I agree with Andrew. I've come out with a couple hot takes with this now, but I agree. I think Stanford sweeps this series and handily. I just don't know what else to say. Stanford's bats have been lighting up pretty well. They started off really, really shaky at the beginning of the year. They were definitely a top 10 team. Weren't they considered a top 5 team at the beginning of the year preseason by some pundits?
I think they were.
Yeah. Yeah. And rightfully so with the amount of talent they have. But coming alive at the right time, good program, good history. I think they take it.
So the final one that we have, other than our series of the weekend, which we'll touch on here shortly, is Wake Forest at NC State. Massive ACC implications there. Neither team is even in the top 50 of ERA, but Wake Forest sits at third in team batting average. NC State not really there outside of Tommy Tanks.
Wake Forest is number 2 in OBP too.
Yeah, they
just get on base.
This could be some kind of a high scoring affair. Wake Forest is pitching, especially recently. Because at one point they were ranked, and that's kind of been their Achilles heel because they can hit the baseball. There's no doubt about that. They just can't stop anybody else from hitting it. But I think going into this weekend when you're facing another team who can't stop anybody from hitting the baseball, I think that has an opportunity to present itself in a series win or even a sweep. I'm not going to go as far as you guys in calling a sweep because a third game, anything can happen. But I do think Wake Forest goes into NC State and takes that series pretty easily. I just don't know if I want to call a sweep because that's hard to do. So if another team can hit the ball with you, things can happen. Weird things can happen. But I like Wake Forest.
It's Tommy Tanks versus Wake Forest. Pick your poison.
One guy or the whole team.
Yeah, I like to kind of keep it short. I think home field advantage is the key here, and North Carolina State wins. Tommy Tanks home run 23, 24, and 25 this weekend.
Oh, wow. That's pretty hot.
Ooh.
Okay.
Calling his shot.
Someone's got to. Tommy Tanks, man. He can do it.
Calling his shot. Didn't he just tie he tied the ACC freshman record at 22, right?
Yep.
Okay. Man.
He should be playing. Him and Dylan Cruz should be playing minor league baseball right now. And they're not.
No.
So the college game is
have those guys.
That much better for it.
Oh, yeah. They're going to benefit from going to college so much more than sitting in the minors for 3, 4, 5 years at a young age. And possibly, because you could go there and not do so well. And what does that do to you mentally? You may never correct yourself. So I think going to college is the way to go.
Yeah.
Well, these two teams, is there anything better that could have happened to college baseball than these two teams taking over the storylines at the beginning of the season during the MLB lockout? Wake Forest was leading the country in home runs at the time. Tommy Tanks absolutely lighting the world on fire as a freshman. Both amazing storylines that just captured America's hearts. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Tommy fell off, but both teams have, had their ups and downs. Bats have stayed hot. Tommy's come back alive. NC State towards the end of the season. Is the bad blood from last year going to come back and drive them into the postseason? I don't know, man. I see Wake Forest this year as being a very similar team to the NC State team last year. And with the way the ACC has been this year, I don't know. I'm going to take Wake to take this one. I'm not going to go so far as a sweep or anything like that, but I got to go Wake Forest to take the series on this one.
Oh, you're backing off now, huh?
Yep.
Well.
Getting shy on us all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Yeah, what happened there? All right, Beef, Flim. Series of the weekend.
Series of the weekend. ACC, big surprise, right?
Yeah, Virginia Cavaliers.
And I think people are going to start to think we're Virginia fans because they've been part of our series of the week a lot this year.
Well, I don't hate Brian O'Connor.
ACC is playing some really, really good baseball. I mean, SEC's been a little bit down with some of the big name programs this year that surprised a lot of people, and the ACC has absolutely taken that and run with it, which I mean is only good for college baseball. Let's be honest. So that series,
We didn't even announce the second team.
I mean,
Louisville,
Cardinal.
Virginia at Louisville. That's some massive series.
it is. It very much is. Virginia, though, they're just tough to put your thumb on right now. I mean, you know, like Virginia Tech is now, or Miami was a little bit ago. Virginia was that team. I mean, right up there with Tennessee. You were arguing that Virginia was the most consistent team in the country, and then something just fell apart. I mean, granted, Tennessee is doing just some otherworldly stuff right now. I mean, they're just not experiencing the drop-off that most would have anybody would expect. They better pray that it continues into the postseason. Otherwise, they'll hear a lot of flack. But Virginia, I don't know if I can safely pick them for anything right now. I just don't trust who they are as a team. I feel like Louisville's a much more consistent team, playing much more consistent baseball. I think Virginia's tried to ride the bat of Jake Geloff a little too much this year. And if he's not on, almost like Texas when they dropped off with Ivan Melendez, if he had an off few series or he wasn't putting up just astronomical numbers, then they were struggling. I'm going to go Louisville on this one. At home, I'm not going sweep or anything like that. I think it'll be a fairly close series, but I think Louisville takes it 2-1.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm with Louisville. I'm riding Louisville. They win home series in the ACC. If you go back and look at their history, they win a lot of home series. I mean, they got that Jared Poland kid, ACC Pitcher of the Week a couple weeks ago. I think they're took one on the nose with Virginia Tech line. But Virginia Tech, like we said, is playing about as good as anybody right now. I had them number 2 in my poll this week. Kind of a team that came out of nowhere this year. I think Louisville bounces back and takes the series 2-1.
Yeah, both teams seem to ride two pitchers' arms as far as starters are concerned, because only 2 guys on both teams apiece have 10 or more starts. Virginia's led by Brian Gursky, 7-0. Somehow he's avoided what has seemed to be a downturn for them here recently. So that's got to – they don't have a lot of guys with a lot of appearances. So I think they're very limited on their arms that they can roll out there and feel comfortable, which has probably been a lot of their shortcomings this year that, like we talked about. At the start of the season, Virginia and Tennessee were the 2 teams that everybody was talking about. Oregon State, yeah, they were there and they were good, but Oregon State wasn't in that conversation yet. And then once Virginia started to kind of slow down and things not go so well, that's when Oregon State started to roll in. So they've kind of been completely in control of their own destiny and have kind of seemed to fumble the ball lately. Still 37-13, which is one of the better records in the country. Louisville the same way. Seems to ride, kind of one arm or 2 arms, 13 starts, 12 starts. So I think there's some inconsistencies in both staffs. So we could be in for a high-scoring game. So we'll see. I do think Louisville takes this series. It's at home. Like you talked about, Flem, historically in the ACC at home, they seem to win. I think they've been better. I think they've been rolling hotter here recently, more than Virginia. So I'll go hot take on this one. Louisville sweeps this series.
Ooh.
That might be the hottest take.
Yeah.
You got to live dangerously and end it right.
I hear you there. Guys, I was trying to go back through it there. Now that we picked our series, everybody please feel free to chew us out whenever we miss something. We're more than happy to take it. I know Flem loves all the heat. That was even your birthday wish at one point.
Bring me all that Arkansas Twitter, hog Twitter.
I was going to say, they might be mad that they're not a series to pick from this weekend.
So, sorry, dog's going a little crazy over here for no reason.
Saw my raccoon.
Yeah, that's what it was. But what do you guys have? We don't want to stay too much longer. What do you guys have for just one quick thought that's hanging out there that you want to end the night on?
I'll jump on this one. The most inconsistent call in college baseball is the time clock. It needs to go away, especially when the batter, LSU and Northwestern State, midweek game, no one really cared about. I saw multiple guys at the plate, and I don't want it called because it's a game of baseball. It's not supposed to be timed, but multiple guys just kind of standing around. And then I've seen the opposite in weekend series where a guy doesn't seem like he takes any time, and they're calling a strike on him. Happened to LSU. It happened to, was it Florida State or Florida earlier this year?
Florida.
That's my big gripe right now is that the play clock's got to go. Especially when there's runners on, you're trying to put a pitch timer on a pitcher, and I can't stand that. And he can't see it unless he looks back at second. And you better hope he catches a glimpse of it. So do away with the pitch clock there.
Flem, what you got for us?
I'm looking forward to these conference tournaments. I'm ready to get through the last weekend of this season and kind of get these conference tournaments set up. A lot of teams that are literally fighting for their lives at this moment. The biggest one that comes to mind is your defending national champions, Mississippi State Bulldogs. They are probably going to miss the SEC tournament and probably going to miss the NCAA tournament.
They will.
I don't think anybody saw that coming. I think moving Sims from the bullpen to your starter was a terrible decision. I thought they could have used Sims like Cops was used last year for Arkansas. I think it gives your team a better opportunity to use them, 2 times a weekend and really lay down some of those wins. I think that's kind of what helped Arkansas to a lot of their success last year. They had some timely hitting, but, when Cops came in the game, it was over. So, yeah, that's kind of what I want to leave on.
Mine, I'm gonna throw a little curveball here. I'm actually gonna call out some fans. What we need are fans that actually care about these programs. If you commit to buying tickets, do not go in that thinking that you're going to try to make a buck. If you cannot make the game, make sure those seats are filled. Okay, I get it if you try to get face value or something back, but these programs need the support. Get people in those seats to be able to cheer on their team. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous when you have a college baseball game where just to enter is $100 and $150. Like, are you kidding me? One of the best things for me growing up was being able to go catch a baseball game with my dad, get a hot dog at the stadium, take my glove with all these dreams, thinking that I'm going to catch a foul ball or meet some of the players or something like that. Don't rob these parents that may not be able to afford other games, being able to take their kids to go enjoy some baseball. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. It's asinine. People need to stop it and grow up. There's my soapbox on that.
If you're over the age of 20, don't bring a baseball glove to a baseball game. You have bare hands.
Amen. And if you're sitting with your girl at a game and a foul ball's coming your way, don't run away.
Yeah.
Don't run away.
Make a play.
Yeah, we will find a way to call you out on social media every single time. Guys, really appreciate talking with you guys as always. That's what we're here for, to help grow the game. We love college baseball. We love talking baseball. We love interacting with our fans. And we absolutely love sunflower seeds. Thank you so much to our sponsor, Chinook Seedery, for everything they've been able to do for us. fans of baseball all across the country, and more importantly, being able to help out some of these athletes across the country. It's been an absolute pleasure having the opportunity to partner with them on some things going forward. Keep an eye out for a potential announcement for another tailgate for the Spittin' Seeds team at a regional, trying to get a couple teams, fan bases involved. Here, don't forget to like us and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, like and subscribe on YouTube. We'll have some interviews with some players coming up. We have some that are already up there posted. We're going to continue to try to bring you guys as much content as possible. Thank you so much for interacting with us. We absolutely love being able to hear about your family interactions at baseball games and everything that comes with it. So thank you all so much. We look forward to bringing you some more baseball content in the very near future. Having a good night, guys.
Good night.